some of the things that we're juggling, Kate, those balls are glass and you can't let that fall. If your kid has, I don't know, a diagnosis and you've got to get them to doctor's appointments, that's a glass ball that you're juggling. That can't fall off. But some of those things are rubber and they're going to bounce and they're going to come back and you're going to catch them again. I think the work that we have to do as overfunctioners, because I certainly was too, is first deciding what are the things that matter most and what can bounce.
Welcome to the Designer's Oasis podcast. I'm your host, Kate Bendewald, interior designer, mama, and CEO of a thriving interior design business built on authentic word-of-mouth referrals. It wasn't that long ago that I stepped away from my corporate architecture job to build my own dream, one that would allow me more time with the people that I love, the ability to serve my clients at the highest level, and to make a great living. It wasn't always easy, and I've made my share of mistakes along the way. Fast forward to today, and I've learned a thing or two. This podcast is for you, the inspired, creative, ambitious, and let's admit it, occasionally overwhelmed interior designer who shares this dream of transforming lives by transforming homes. Join me and my guest each week as we walk through practical ways to build an interior design business you love and helps you transform your clients' lives. You can do this. Thank you for letting me spend part of this day with you. Let's get to it. Today, my guest is Molly Crouch. Molly is a corporate ladder climber turned gentle living visionary who began to unravel the busyness of her own life after her youngest daughter was born. Now she serves as a co-listener and coach for busy women who want to discover the rhythms, routines, and rituals that lead to a more sustainable life. Molly received her life coaching certification through Erickson Coaching International in 2020 and is a co-host for a quarterly women's retreat called Tonic and Bloom, where guests are invited for a day of pause, play, and restoration. She lives with her husband and 4 children near the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains in Charlottesville, Virginia. Today, we are here to talk about how rituals, routines, and rhythms can help you create a more sustainable business. Molly believes that it is important to reframe our view of our relationship to the world, our clients, our families, our friends, so that we can find more balance. Please welcome Molly Crouch to the podcast. Hi, Molly. How are you?
Hey, Kate. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I am thrilled to have you. Welcome.
Thank you.
May is mental health awareness. I can't talk mental health awareness. And so we're thrilled that you are here to help us kick things off. So thank you so much for joining us. We actually had you planned for, I want to say like either a little bit earlier, a little bit later. And it's like, no, this is perfect. What mental health is a side topic that we talk about here on the podcast, in addition to all things interior design business. And so when I first learned about you and what you're doing, I was very thrilled to hear more. So thank you so much. We're happy to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I have to tell you straight out of the gate, 3 of the women dearest in my life are interior designers. And I'm like, I don't know how we've attracted to each other, but truly the dearest women.
I love that.
I love being on here for that reason too.
Oh, great. Well, you were surrounded by interior designers today, so they're going to be thrilled to hear from you. So I want to start things off with, I love a good backstory. So I understand that you are mom to 4 kiddos that spans 10 years. Is that correct?
Yes, I have a daughter in kindergarten, and I just took my oldest daughter over spring break to college tours. So if that gives you any sense of the world I'm living in, that about wraps it up.
My oldest daughter just turned 10, so that would be the equivalent of me basically having a child now. And they are my young, as I have two, they're 3 years apart. And I remember when my second was born, I was like, oh my gosh, we're starting all over. We're starting from scratch, And so, yeah, having a 10-year-old and the idea of all of a sudden I'm sure my kids would love it. They'd be like, yay, this is fun. But that does put some perspective on it for me, for sure. So tell me about, I want to hear your story and how you found yourself in this line of work and what you do.
Yeah, so back in 2016, my husband and I both had just really, really full careers. I was a marketing director for a private school in Charlottesville. He was traveling internationally for his work. We were just careers alone, we were very full. We were always producing, we were answering to people, we had deadlines, we had very little margin. Meanwhile, our three children are, in those growing up years. I have a set of twins. They were 5 years old at the time. We decided that evidently you throw your kids into every sport possibly offered. So we were doing that. Our oldest daughter was tracking with sports and activities as well. We just had very little room for error. So I don't know if this rings true or relates, but it's like if one little thing fell off in a week, the whole, this whole thing that you created just kind of starts to disintegrate and fall apart. And that's where we were. And then that April, we found out that we were pregnant. And that's our Winnie. That's my kindergartner now. Cute. And it was, what I can look back and say is that it was an absolute gift because it totally stopped us in our tracks. But what I would say at the time is that it was the ultimate disruption. And I know that's a really crass way of naming a child, but it was like this ultimate thing that just stopped us and made us ask ourselves, what are we doing? What is this that we're doing when we can't make room in this current way that we're living for any margin, much less another life. And so it was a slow but intentional, I call it an unraveling of busy, where we made some really hard choices, some of them in our careers, many of them in the activities that we were involved in, both volunteer and our kids' activities. We made hard choices. We disappointed a ton of people, and I would not go back and do it any other way. It was the best thing that could have happened to our family. That little life was the best thing, but also saying the way that we're living is not sustainable and we've got to make some changes. And so over time, and how that aligns with my current work is that over time, Kate, other women started to recognize what was a softer version of Molly and a version that could say what I needed or say no when asked to do things. And I started getting those questions from other high achieving women because I was running with them, high achieving women who said, how are you doing that? Like, what did you do? What are you doing? And I started hearing their stories, which were so beautiful and were, very similar to my own. And I began to think that maybe in a professional capacity, co-listening with women to say, who am I becoming over time? Am I doing this in a way that feels true to me and to my family? Those are kind of those central questions that we wrestle with in a coaching relationship. So I did a coaching academy. I got my certification, and I'm certainly honored to get to sit with women through these questions.
Oh my goodness. This is hitting close to home for me right now. Oh, there's so much that you just said that I want to kind of try to go back to and try to stay focused, because I heard a lot of my own story, and I will say that over the years I have been pretty proud of myself at being able to hire and learn to delegate better, and to just this week, I was listening to Dan Sullivan, who's all about who, not how, is this going to get done? And I found myself on Monday in our Monday meeting, just delegating left and right. And so it's not something that I'm terrible at, but I am an Enneagram 7. And if you're familiar with the Enneagram types, that is the enthusiast. And so
You
as
sure
an
are.
enthusiast, as an enthusiast, which I love being a 7, we're lighthearted. We like to have a good time, but we have shiny object syndrome. We like to do it all. We are full of ideas. We're always on the go. And when we're being a healthy 7, that can be really cool, right? There's a lot of cool things that can happen, but an unhealthy and unintegrated 7 can often find themselves with too many pots on the stove, and just, all the metaphors, burning the candle at both ends of the stick. And so that is definitely something that I am guilty of. And so while I can delegate, at the same time, I'm also like drumming up other things. And so, and I was recently, just to be totally transparent and frank, I was recently doing some work with my therapist on this, and we were talking about, I've gotten to the point with her when I've realized where this came from, right? I've diagnosed, okay, I'm an overfunctioner, right? And I understand how this came to be and how I came to have these habits. And so I'm at this place personally where I'm like, okay, now that I know this, it solves the knowledge problem. Now what? Right. And so I think this might be where Molly comes in and can sort of shed some light on how do you manage that on a day-to-day basis. And I'm going to give you an example of how this showed up for me recently. It was very recently. It was this weekend. And, I had been talking with my therapist about how I feel like I have all the balls in the air. And, I'm running 2 businesses. We've got 2 kids. We're currently renovating our house. We have a robust social life because we have meaningful friendships that we like to maintain our connections with. And I don't want that. I don't want that to change, right? These are all good things. I have, I'm not in any way complaining. I'm so grateful for everything that we have. But at the same time, on a day-to-day basis, it does feel like I'm juggling all the balls. I am the family calendar. I keep everybody where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. And I feel like if I don't maintain that, the wheels are going to fall off, right? And I just, was expressing this it's just exhausting. And my husband is very supportive. I don't want to discredit him. He's very supportive. But what happened was, soccer season started to kick off right when the renovation started to kick off. And so all the emails started to come in about soccer. And I just forwarded it to my husband. I said, I need you to take on soccer, getting it paid, getting her signed up, getting the stuff on the calendar. I just can't do that and general contract our renovation. We're not using a GC. I'm doing it. And so he said, sure. So Saturday morning, I get a text from one of my friends whose child is also on the soccer team. And she said, I missed you at soccer practice this week. Are you going to be at the game today? I'm like, I can, like, my body just got physically hot, and just like, I'm reliving this moment. And what came over me was this feeling of shame and embarrassment, that we had missed this. And I looked at, I was like, what? I looked at my husband, I was like, what happened? What's going on? I asked you about this last week, and it's not on the calendar. We missed the practice. Nothing's on the calendar. I asked you to take this one thing, and he's just like, sorry, I forgot. I got busy too. Right. Well, he's human too. He's also in the midst of his career, and he fell off his radar, right? I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but the point is, the feeling that happened, I sat on my bed and I just teared up because I was mad at him. I was embarrassed that we missed it. And I just didn't know how to how to like make sense of it. And I just had to sit there for a moment and be like, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. Right. It's okay. Nobody's hurt. We're
Yes.
just going to join them next week and we're going to get going. Like we got to go get her cleats and whatever. Cause of course she's grown out of him. She's growing like a weed. But this isn't, I say this story because I think you obviously know what I'm talking about. And I think there's people that can relate that
Yes.
I'm in this overfunctioning trap. And so now that I have this knowledge problem of this is what I do. What happened was it felt like validation. It's like, see, if I don't take care of it, shit's going to hit the fan. and so this was the point. This is for me, it was a lesson of like, you know what? It didn't hit the fan. Everybody's okay. You don't need to be
Yes.
embarrassed. And it's just like, we're just going to go on and it's okay. So
Yes.
I'm hoping we can kind of talk about this a little bit. And
Yeah.
what would you say to somebody like this in my situation?
Well, we'd start with right what you said, Kate. It's that, our brains are always looking for evidence, right? With our beliefs, the things that we believe to be true. And so here, in this case, you got this tiny little bit of validation that said, see, if I don't do it, nobody will. And that repetitive thought becomes something that over time we begin to believe. So now, not only are all the balls in the air, but you're the one holding them because it's so much easier. And I find this maybe to be more true in our personal lives than our professional ones, because we can delegate. We are learning that art. But in our personal lives, it's like, oh no, I hold this. Because if I give that up, if I ask for what I need, is that going to fall through? And then I have those feelings of shame, that bodily sensation that you mentioned. So I would just first say to you that this was one instance, but that our whole belief system is evidenced by many, many things that happen in our lives. So if you were my client, I would say, let's not let this one thing kind of inform the whole of how you show up in your family, what you take on, what you don't give over, what you don't ask for help for. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, just going with that, the balls in the air. I mean, it's such a good metaphor, right? Because it's such a good visual. You can kind of see it. And I would say that some of the things that we're juggling, Kate, are those balls are glass and you can't let that fall. If your kid has, I don't know, a diagnosis and you've got to get them to doctor's appointments, that's a glass ball that you're juggling. That can't fall off. But some of those things are rubber and they're going to bounce and they're going to come back and you're going to catch them again. And so I think the work that we have to do as overfunctioners, because I certainly was too, is first deciding what are the things that matter most and what can bounce to somebody else, what can bounce and be picked back up. I
just put my hands in the air. I'm like, yes, I love that. In our audience, we're very visual thinkers. I know this. I think that metaphor is going to ring so true. To me, all the balls are glass, right? And that's how I've been operating.
And that's hard. That's hard to view it that way, because then there has to be room for error. There has to be that margin. And that's what we talk about. That's what we talk about a lot. I'm sure you've heard, and it is the download that I was sharing about with you. I'm sure you've heard about the urgent, important quadrant, that there are some things in our lives that are urgent and important. And when you think about that with work, I mean, you're your own contractor for your renovation. So urgent and important, you know exactly which ones those things are because they're on a time basis. And then there are things that are not urgent, not important. Those are our little time wasters. There are things that are important, but not urgent. And those are the things that I find feel so we can push those things to the side, but they really are so meaningful. Oftentimes they have to do with our family, or because it's mental health month, they're our own form of self-care. What isn't urgent? Nobody's knocking on your door and asking you for the thing, but it's for you. And it's really important that you do that you prioritize your health, or that you make the appointment with the counselor, whatever that looks like for you. So it's sort of, if you find yourself in a place where all the balls are glass, that could be a good activity for you to do, because the truth is that they're not. The truth is that you do have some that are like the bouncy balls, and not everything's going to fall apart, which is what happened with you at the soccer game. Not everything fell apart. The child will go on to play soccer.
Yeah, exactly. And even when I heard you first starting to explain that some of them are glass, my brain went to, oh, she's going to say that the others are like foam and they just fall to the ground. But you actually said rubber, which means they bounce back and you get a second chance to catch them up. So it's even more specific. Hey, designer, are you tired of wasting precious time with prospective clients who are not a right fit? Do you experience imposter syndrome because the back end of your business is kind of a hot mess? Perhaps you're experiencing growing pains and you don't have the tools, resources, or team to support you. I get it. I've been there. As an ambitious interior design business owner myself, I know the roller coaster ride this can be. Over the years, I've learned a thing or two about running a profitable word-of-mouth design business, and I want to help you find success too. How would it feel to wake up and face the day knowing exactly what to focus on next, having a roster of enthusiastic clients, including a paid waitlist, and having the space, time, and creative energy to develop projects that you are proud of and are portfolio, if not press-worthy? I want to invite you to learn more about the Interior Designer's Business Blueprint, a business coaching program designed exclusively for interior designers who want to serve their clients at the highest level while making good money, but without the burnout and overwhelm. If you're ready to get off the roller coaster, you don't have to do it alone. Join me inside the Interior Designer's Business Blueprint and get the tools, teaching, and community you need to pave the way for an interior design business your clients love and you are proud of. To learn more, grab the link on your audio player or head to designersoasis.com/blueprint. That's designersoasis.com/blueprint. Yeah, I there's this really great Brene Brown podcast episode on overfunctioning, and she shares her own story there. But she also talks about how, this overfunctioning or underfunctioning, whatever the case may be, we're talking about rhythms and routines. So I want to get into that. But she talks about how anxiety is contagious. And so if I know a lot of the people listening, you are in some way a leader, whether that's a leader in your family, in your business, in your community. And so you kind of set the tone for the atmosphere in which you're leading, whether that's your household or whatever the case may be, your business. And so when I heard that, it elevated the importance for me to kind of figure this out and to get it right. Because if I am operating from a place that A, I'm juggling all the balls, B, all the balls are glass, and C, if the balls fall, everything falls apart, right? And it's for folks listening, it's like client work, thinking about your deadlines, thinking about the things that have to be ordered, thinking about handling the issues that come in, from damaged items or whatever, right? That's just the stuff going on at work. I'm not even talking about what happens in your home life or your community or whatever. That is unsustainable. And not only is it not sustainable for you, but anywhere you're showing up as a leader, you are passing on, because it's contagious, the anxiety to the people around you. And so not only do you deserve, I'm saying this because I want to talk about how important it is I want to hear more from you about these rhythms and routines, because it's a responsibility I feel like we have to give ourselves some more grace and to find ways to work in a more sustainable way, because not only do we deserve that, but the people around us, children especially, deserve to have an environment that feels relaxing and peaceful and at ease. And if we're constantly, vibing up here in this level of anxiousness, then, it's not good for anybody. So let's move into this idea of rhythms and routines. Can you, let's say, okay, we've acknowledged that we've been operating as high function. Try to say high functioners, over functioning. Okay. What does it look like on a day-to-day basis to start to be more mindful and change some of your practices? Can you share some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it's the same thing that I would say, even that you mentioned about, the anxiousness, which is really not anxiety and overfunctioning is a production of hyperarousal in our body. Like, I can't find the ground. I'm always spun up. And so the opposite of that is like finding the ground, the groundedness. To me, that's kindness to myself. That really, when I really think about it in like a more holistic way, I am being kind to myself when I can put my feet on the ground. And sometimes that is physically going outside and putting my feet on the ground. There are those mindful activities that help us to feel like we're solid. So kindness to self. And then the second piece of that I talk about with a lot of my clients, and I've heard a few of your podcast episodes, so I know you're talking about it too, Kate, is boundaries. Boundaries in your business and your life. With those clients that text you at 7:00 on a Thursday night, when you're at the soccer practice with your kid or putting a little one to bed, like how you set up your life, which does intro me into rhythms and routines, but how you are setting up your life and the boundaries that you're putting up, it matters. It matters so much to your people. So rhythms and routines, and maybe this resonates with your audience also, Kate, can be a mantra. It can be you saying something like, I will not give the first fruits of my creativity to someone else today. I get the first fruits of that creative mind that I have. So what might that look like? And then you start thinking through, well, my client meetings start at 9:00 in the morning. So maybe a routine where I get to be creative just for the sake of creativity, which is why I'm in this industry in the first place. Maybe that looks like how you set your morning up before all of that hustle and bustle starts. So in coaching, we talk about the rhythm, which is the thing that you do over and over. It's predictable. And then the ritual, which is how you kind of signpost it. Like you say, when I do this thing, I'm going to do this every time. And I'll give you a practical example because it's more helpful. So my rhythm that I do in the mornings is I walk. I take my daughter to the school bus at 6:50 in the dang morning. It's so early. I take her to the bus and then I take the dog on a walk. I walk a mile and the sun is rising and it's really beautiful. So that's my rhythm. The routine is that I do it every day on the weekdays. So Monday through Friday, that's my routine. And I ritualize it because when I get to the end of my road, there's this beautiful barn on a hill. And I take I take a photo. I always have my phone because I'm usually listening to a podcast or listening to music. And when I get to the end, because the sky looks different every day, it's so beautiful. I wouldn't notice it if I weren't doing that. So I take a picture on my phone, and that's my ritual. It's a way of saying, like, I am noticing this day and I'm right here. I'm not a million miles ahead thinking about, that meeting that I have at 2:00. And I'm not thinking about yesterday. I'm just here. That's a hard thing to do, but it can be so life-giving, particularly for women who are entrepreneurs and who are often thinking ahead and behind. So that's just one example.
I love that. Yes, this is good for me to hear, because I am a planner by nature, and I right now I'm, we live in Denver, and the summer camps here fill up really fast and really early. And so, January is when you start to think about summer camps and mapping out your plan. And I joked to my husband, like, if I died, you would be sitting with the kids on the last day of school asking yourself, what's next? Where are these guys going to go for the summer? We're like, buddy, I figured that out in January.
So, yeah, he should be so lucky.
Yeah, well, we divvy up the responsibilities, and he has this thing, but that is literally, I just had to chuckle at myself, because I was freaking out that, like, the last 3 weeks of school, or summer, I feel like our kids have the longest summer break ever. And, they don't have anything. They don't have any summer camps, and it's like 3 weeks in August. And I'm like, I can't even find any that are being hosted. And so I'm like, yes. I was freaking out, like, what am I going to do? It's like, it's March. And I'm like, what if you just didn't work? What if you just took some time off? What if you just spent a couple of weeks with your kids? They're not getting any younger. And so that is currently the goal, is trying to figure out a way to ramp up for ramping down for those couple of weeks. And, I probably won't not work at all, but it'll look a little bit lighter, and I'm excited for that. And so it was a proud moment for me to just, like, rethink about how to treat that, not to freak out that there's nobody else to take care of my kids. Instead, their mother, might actually take care of them for a minute. So it's going to be fun. And I'm looking forward to it. But this, I want to go back to rhythms and rituals. And so you're saying that by creating some rituals and rhythms and routines, that this is one of the ways that you can start to be present. And that is the antithesis of kind of the anxiety that ensues, because anxiety is coming from thinking about the past or the future. Yes. And I know, if I were to really track it, I am always, like, I'm not just thinking about what's next on my list, but the thing after that, and the thing after that, and the thing after that.
Sure.
and
that's by nature of your business, Kate. And I think that's okay. Like, what we're not talking about here is rolling back your life to a point where you're no longer thinking those few steps ahead, because that's just the nature of your business. What a rhythm and a ritual gives you, it's just the ability to pay attention. Okay. So it really is, all mindfulness is about, grounding and noticing. That's why somebody who's teaching mindfulness is telling you to, like, hold a rock in your hand and really just, like, feel that, because it's right there in the moment. So I think what I would say is that there are times during your day where, of course, you're thinking, I don't know how far ahead you have to plan, maybe a year if you're talking about projects, who knows? But can you also just be present in your day? And that's what the rhythms and the rituals give. So another example is a woman that I'm coaching right now where we're talking about her shutdown routine at the end of the day. And so this is a little bit less personal and more business, but like physically closing her laptop and saying, I'm done with the day. You know, speaking those words out loud so that when she does get those inevitable emails later in the evening, her day is already done. She already said it. That's it. And so that's an intentionality that I think takes practice. But the ritual of closing the laptop and saying this day is done.
Yeah.
It's a kindness to you, and it's a kindness to your people. Because our kids, I mean, they're watching. And what's cool is that they're watching you, their mom, be amazing and, you know, having this successful business. And so how much more are you showing them when you can say, you know, those 3 weeks in the summer, I'm going to do this business. I need to work for, you know, a couple hours in the morning, and this is what you can do while I'm doing that. But then I'm yours. And this is, you know, this is a thing we do together, this relationship. I think that's really beautiful that they could see both.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good reminder. It really is, because they are ultimately why I chose to go work for myself. And you know what, in what I'm hearing right now, and I think everyone listening will appreciate, is like a part of being mindfulness is just noticing. And I know that I have in the past, I actually do have routines and rhythms, and there are times where I'm, you know, feeling good, well rested, and those routines and rhythms are happening, and I'm doing them. I have a pretty solid weekly routine that I stick to. The daily routines could probably, you know, be a little better, but I'm not going to beat myself up over it. But when I'm doing well, those weekly routines really, really serve me well, so that I can stay focused and I can serve my clients and my people here, of course, in Designers Oasis, within the membership. And so I'm just recognizing the importance of doing that on a regular basis. And for me, it's visual. I have a couple of visual tools that I use to help me stay, you know, mindful of my week. You know, my Mondays are get set up for the week, and you can kind of look at it like a bell curve. And Tuesdays is where I have a lot of phone calls and meetings. And Wednesdays I try to either I'm doing podcast recording or I'm doing like deep work that requires deep creativity, deep focus. So no phone calls, no meetings, no errands, that kind of thing. And then as my week winds down, I'm buttoning up things from earlier in the week, and especially this time of year in the spring, trying to take some time off on Fridays, especially in the afternoons, because gardening is really important to me. And so spending time in my garden and getting that ready is so important part of my week. So I want to go back to something else you said around people pleasing. I talk to a lot of the designers in our community, and I know that people pleasing is something that we can all, I think, relate to. So I think we need to address that, because if we're going to create routines and rhythms for ourselves, and you said this at the top of our conversation, then it's going to require us to be more conscientious of our people-pleasing habits. So what would you say to the people pleaser who's listening, the one who doesn't like to disappoint people? How do they start to move away from constantly saying yes and learn to have discernment and agency, and to know when to say yes and when to say no?
I always say disappoint your people the least if you can help it at all. If you could see like these concentric circles, your people are in the middle. Those are the people you disappoint the least. And then it moves out, and then it moves out, and then it moves out. It's just another visual way to look at it. But people pleasing is tricky because it's so ingrained. And if it's ingrained in any kind of previously corporate way, where you literally are pleasing the people because you're answering to them and they're your boss, and now all of a sudden, like, here you are, you're your own boss. You can take a lot of that with you. And so there's a shedding that gets to happen where we get to say, what am I doing this work for? Who am I doing this work for? What was your quote? It's the who, not the how, or something like that. Yeah. But I think that the people pleasing among us are often the people that are finding it hardest to set the boundaries. And so I just really feel like starting with that interior circle and saying, these are the people that I'm going to disappoint the least, is a good place to start. And then saying no we have to practice it. There's no easy way to do it. But what I tell my coaching clients when we are working through a season of no with people, and it's not going to come easy. It's actually going to be super painful. But there is a place where you can get to where you say no and there's no further explanation needed. And that feels really hard at first because you want to say, well, I can't do it. And here's the 5 reasons why, or I can't get back to you by Wednesday because I actually have these 7 other projects and they're taking all my time. And if you practice long enough on the no, then there will come a point where you'll say, I can't get to your project on Wednesday. I'll be back with you on Friday. That takes so much time and intentionality. It's practice more than anything else. I mean, we could walk through a list, but at the end of the day, it's just practicing it, practicing saying no.
Yeah, we do talk about this in business quite a bit. One of the exercises that we have inside my program is, last year I took a number of tools that I have and I put it together in one, so it all kind of works together, and it's called the CEO Toolkit. And the way that it starts out is it starts with your personal life, and I'm seeing how this all fits into what you're talking about, and I'm really good at that big picture, kind of like, let's just map things out and then get granular from there. But it starts with taking, I tell people, if you've look at your calendar for the year, and you might not know exactly when you want to take a vacation, but you might say, somewhere in March, I want to take off some time. Maybe it's for your kids' spring break or whatever. Yeah. Maybe you want to take off. I know I really get into Christmas. And so I take a solid, 3 or 4 weeks off during the holidays. And it's a really important part of our family, just our traditions and resting and reflecting and kicking off the new year in a healthy way. And so it starts by taking a look at your overall lifestyle and what it is that you want, how you want it to look, and just printing out. I have a calendar for the year, and you print it out and you just start marking off, some of this time. Right. And I've done that for this year. I didn't do it for August. So that's why I'm having to recalibrate a little bit, and so this helps you understand your capacity, right, for work better. And then the tool goes into, okay, so now that you've blocked that out, your personal time, then you can put it on this little tool that I have. That helps you visually see how much time and room you have left for your client work. And so when you get a client that comes through the door, and I say, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no sort of thing. So if they come through and you're already feeling crunched on your deadlines for your client work, you have to decide, is this project a project that's it's got to do a couple of things for you. One, it's got to pay the bills. It's got to be financially a good, worthwhile project, but also it needs to light you up creatively. It needs to be something that's going to really, really excite you. And, the kind of people that you really want to spend time working with. And then if it doesn't fit in your current calendar, there are some ways to kind of bring them into the fold and put them on a wait list that allows you to say to them, yes, but not yet.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not saying yes to those other things too, then it might not be a good fit for you. And you can leave that door open for some other projects that are going to really, really light you up. And so this is helping to give folks a filter in order to say no to projects. And you've got designers, friends who are designers, so they can probably attest to this, but
I do.
Especially today, projects take a really long time. Especially if you're doing full service. And so you're engaging with somebody on a really intimate level. It's a long-term commitment, right? It's a long-term engagement. If you're doing full service, it's at least 6 months, but depending on the size of the project, it could be a year or two or more. And so the importance of saying yes to the right people and the right projects is really important, because you're investing in them just as much as they're investing in you. And you don't want to be in a long-term engagement with somebody who is a toxic relationship, a toxic personality. And so that the people pleasers, this can be really difficult to say no, especially when somebody's offering to pay you, right? And especially if you're just getting started in this industry, and you're, there are times when you're going to say yes to projects that might not be ideal, right? But there does become this point where you start to have a little bit more, hopefully, financial freedom to pick and choose your projects, right? That's the goal. But getting comfortable with disappointing people, I love what you're saying to me is really refreshing, because it's underscoring the fact that, like, there's no way around this. You can't tiptoe your way through these uncomfortable moments of saying no and disappointing people. You just have to do it, right? And I found that when I started to say no to projects, it was an instant feeling of just like, oh, you feel good, right? And so I've had a lot of conversations with designers who are struggling with, whether or not to take a project. And it's like, you just do a gut check. If you said no tomorrow and said, no, this isn't a good fit for me, how would you feel? And the feeling is ease and peace. That's your answer.
Yes. I love that. And another way to look at that too, Kate, is if that thing got taken from you tomorrow, if that potential client walked away tomorrow, would you be, is it heart-wrenching? Or are you like, oh, thank God?
I'm reminded of a reel that you just posted on your Instagram where somebody cancels a meeting and you cross it out and you're just like laughing. You're like, yes. And I did a little bit of that on Monday. I was talking with Megan and I was like, I got too many meetings. We got to move some stuff around. And it was just like, and there was some white space. And so, oh, I could talk about this at length with you, but we are out of time. But I don't want to end this without, there's a couple things I want to make sure that people know about you. First of all, you have a really cool offer on your website. And we talked earlier about, you talk about how traditional to-do lists don't work, and you have this quadrant. And so this is a way to organize your to-dos that helps you to prioritize. And so that's something on your website, which we'll create a link to. Can you just kind of briefly chat about what that tool is and how people can use it?
Yep. So it's called the What Matters list, and it really is a different way to organize your week. It walks through what I mentioned earlier, which are those 4 quadrants of urgent and important. And it just uses that as a tool for people to be able to say, what is it that matters most this week? And then to even drill down per day. What is the thing that matters most today? And, coming back to the end of the day, when I have this done, how will I feel? How will it feel to have this thing done? And so it's not going to be, the running checklist that we're frantically trying to check off that's causing all the anxiety. It is really a more holistic way to look at the week and then each day. I've been doing it now for a couple of months, and I find that I still have a note that I keep in the notes app on my phone where I'm like, these are my projects, these are my appointments. But as far as like what really matters this week, that's what I do, that downloadable form. So it is a free download for anyone, and you can find that on my website or on Instagram.
Perfect. We'll be sure to link to it in the show notes. I have just gotten my copy and I am super excited to start utilizing this, because it's definitely, this has been a season. Internally, we've had a lot of projects going on and we're just kind of all at the same time. And so we're hopefully getting to a point where we can start to roll it out and then take a minute. But it has been hard personally for me in this season with so much going on to know what to prioritize and what to focus on, and everything can't have the same urgency. And so what I'm really excited about with this download that you offer is it's not only helping you to prioritize it, but it's asking you to go a step further and to think about how is it going to make you feel. And so I'm really grateful that you have spent the time to put this together and offer to share it with us. So
it's my pleasure.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would love for you to share about, and I cannot wait to come join you on one of these. I mentioned earlier, I have family visiting on the next, so you host this workshop, and I can't go to either of the next two because I have family coming, which is a really good reason to not go, but I got to get out for one of these. So you have a tonic, it's called Tonic and Bloom, and you host these workshops. So can you share more about your workshops?
Absolutely. So this is my best friend and I got together last year, and we said, you know what? We feel like the world is opening back up. We want a space to gather women. We kept finding women saying, I'm at a loss of community. I don't have people. I'm also tired. I don't play anymore. I don't do anything for myself anymore. And we said, we have a solution. She has this beautiful piece of property in Greenwood, Virginia, just outside of Charlottesville. And I'm a coach. And so we started the Tonic and Bloom retreat, which is a seasonal retreat for women. That we host now every season, 4 times a year. And it's just really an opportunity to gather women together. They get a massage, they get an art, we do art, painting, a painting workshop. We have time for naps and crafts and local delicious food. And so we are just really there to give you the best day of your life and send you on your way, because it's this idea that you come, you find what fills you up and what's life-giving to you, and then you go back out to your people and you just bloom and flourish, and your people benefit so much from that. So it's a special event, and we'd love to have you, Kate.
It sounds magical. My girlfriend was just over last night. We had dinner with the kids out on the back patio last night, and we were just, her little one is in preschool, and he's having a hard time going to sleep at night because he's still taking naps. And every day she picks him up, and the teacher's always like, oh, he just had the best nap today. And we're both like, lucky him. So we all could use a nap, and it's
that we all need naps.
Sounds like you've built this in. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. Well, Molly, tell folks where we can find you online.
Absolutely. So my business is called In Her Company. I'm at inhercompany.com. I'm also on Instagram at In Her Company, and I offer one-on-one coaching. We'll be offering group coaching starting this summer, and then of course our Tonic and Bloom retreat. So it's a joy to listen along and serve women who are in this, what I say is the busy, beautiful middle third of life, you
gosh.
you don't know everything and you
Yeah.
can't do everything anymore. And you just want to be open to who you're becoming. And those are the women that I serve.
It is so beautiful. And I'm hearing all that you're doing. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, she's doing this and she has 4 kids and she's saying no. And I'm like, it's such an inspiration. And you know what I hope people remember the most from this. I mean, there's so many good nuggets here, but it's one of the things you said right at the very top. And I hope people remember this, is that you disappointed a lot of people, but at the same time, it sounds like there were some people around you in your circle that started to take notice, and it was inspiring to them. And they were like, we don't know what you're doing. There's something happening here, but we want whatever it is. And so you might be disappointing some people in this journey of simplifying, but know that you can also do it and you can earn the respect, of people whose opinion matters, right?
Yes. Yes.
So thank you so
thank
much
you for saying that. Thank you,
Molly. I can't wait to meet you in person one of these days. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful spring season and those walks. And I know I'm going to be thinking about this conversation for a long time after it's over. So thank you.
And happy Mental Health Awareness Month. I hope
Yes.
it's a beautiful month for you and for all of the listeners.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for letting me spend part of this day with you. If you're loving this podcast, please share it with a friend who you think might also love it. Or perhaps you can take just 30 seconds to open your podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating. And if you have just an extra minute, go ahead and leave a review. This helps me so much, and it helps other designers like you to find the podcast. It also adds fuel to my motivation to keep making great episodes just for you. However you choose to help, please know I appreciate you so very much. Thank you, my friend. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.